We want to clean in the paint. We're going to call hand checking and body checking, and sportsmanship is an absolute must. Okay.
He lets it fly. Oh, I can't believe it.
Welcome back to Two Shots in the Ball podcast. I am your co-host, the coach, Mike McAndrews, along with my brother, the ref, Jim McAndrews. Jim, double digits. This is episode 10. Can you believe we've made it to double digits? So we're not canceled yet.
Not yet. Whew, I did not know we were at 10.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
we may be after
Kudos
today.
to you.
10 might be the last one. Who knows?
Very interesting guest today with a sports background that we've known for a long time.
So we're going to talk some sports and some other stuff with our guest today. So why don't we get into introducing our guest?
Yep, sounds good.
Today's guest has spent close to 20 years covering high school sports in Metro Detroit. He started his prep sports coverage at the Detroit Free Press in 2006. In 2007, he started covering prep sports for the Oakland Press, where he spent 18 years. He has worked for the premier high school sports show in Michigan, state champs, for the last 16 years. He is a 1995 graduate of Roper, which we won't hold against him on this podcast at least, where he played basketball and baseball. He has been inducted into the Roper Hall of Fame as well as the Michigan Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. Aside from his sports journalist career, he is an author, journalist, historian, television producer, podcaster, and organized crime expert. He is the nation's leading true crime reporter when it comes to Italian mafia affairs, outlaw biker clubs, and major drug dealing organizations, and has worked extensively in film and television industry as a producer and consultant on a string of critically acclaimed projects. His published works include 6 books on organized crime activity in Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, and Las Vegas. We are pleased to welcome Scott Burnstein onto the Two Shots in the Ball podcast. Whew, I need a drink after that. I need to get water here.
Yeah,
thanks, guys. I'm your biggest fan, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've been watching since you guys started, and obviously I know the McAndrews clan. I knew them as rivals for a while, and then over the years we became friends, and rivals in terms of athletics.
Yeah. Well, Jim and I are not in the mafia.
Mike said this is our 10th
10th episode.
Yeah. This is 10th episode. And this is the first time, just because I wanted to say I wore the Mooney gear, because I'm supposed to be
That's a jab.
I wore the Mooney gear, the jab at the Roper.
I was thinking about, when people think about all the great rivalries in Metro Detroit, you don't think Roper and Mooney. But then I was thinking, and it's not so much a rivalry because you guys pretty much won everything. So it's not really a rivalry, but I was thinking in terms of my alma mater. If you go through the history, I would say not all. If 95 of the biggest basketball games, 95% of the biggest basketball games in my school's history came down to Roper Mooney.
Mooney.
In terms of Roper, maybe we should really consider Mooney the main villain in our story, as opposed to maybe an Oakland Christian or a Cranbrook, which was back in my day. But I mean, you guys have built quite the athletic program and basketball program, and it was the coach.
Yeah.
And it was 25 years before I knew them personally. 20 years.
High school sports, crazy.
Yeah.
So
15
Scott,
years.
Take us through your journey in sports journalism. What drew you into wanting to cover high school sports?
I got the bug when I was about 11 years old, 11, 12, and I would have my dad take me around to a lot of games. That was when Chris Webber was playing, and I was kind of obsessed with Webber, and I would want to go to as many of his games as I could. Mill the Thrill Coleman was down the street from me as well at Harrison. So it was like Mill the Thrill in football, Webber in basketball. I would have my dad take me to those games, drop me off sometimes. He'd either take me and I'd be with him, or he'd drop me and my friends off. And that really, sparked it. Then when I was around that same age, I became the ball boy, water boy for the Roper varsity basketball team when I was 11 years old. So I was like on the bench and in the locker room and whatever the traveling with them. It sounds more
Yeah,
more
yeah.
glorious than it was, but and having all those older guys to look up to, and my coach Ernie Rigetti, who's one of the goats. I while I was playing, my teammates and my coaches always knew that I was. It was like it was more than just the games and the practices. Like I was keeping tabs on everybody. I knew all the starting lineups at all the teams. This is when I was like 16. By the time I was a senior, I was going with the coaches were taking me along on their scouting. All the
Yeah.
none of the other players were going with the coaching staff to scout. They'd grab me with them. Then when I was in college, I went to Indiana University, and
Another
I
reason we like you.
Yeah.
yes,
Go
and
Hoosiers, baby.
I volunteered uh, coaching with some of the local high school and AAU stuff. My roommate in college, actually, we have three guys from my fraternity uh, became Division I head coaches. One of them is coaching in Ann Arbor right now,
Really?
Dusty May, and
I was talking to
Dusty.
Dusty when we were out there about Little Five. One of my best friends went to IU, so I'd go down for Little Five.
Yeah, Little
From
Five
what
is
I
an
remember, I was at Little Five.
epic weekend. And so I was in the late 90s. I was helping Dusty and my very close friend Joe Pasternak, who's the head coach at University of California Santa Barbara right now. um I was helping them coach the Bloomington Red, which was the AAU program. And so then I'm in so I go from being kind of obsessed with the Metro Detroit scene, then I'm in Indiana, which is like the epicenter.
Yeah.
And so I was going around scouting there and coach. So it just seemed like a natural progression when I got into journalism, and I got a book deal really young, and I published my first book. I was like, or my first book got published before I was 30. And I kind of thought like, okay, I'm an author. Like, this is my job.
Yeah.
And I realized really, really quickly that that's not your main
That's your source
income
of
because
income.
you
Yeah.
can't sustain on it. So I really backdoored the journalism industry. I didn't have any journalism training. I went to college. I got a political science degree and a minor in psychology and history, and then went to law school. I was home. This was in 06, 07. I was home. I was promoting a book, and I needed work. So I had some friends at the Free Press, that got me into the Free Press, and got me some, small gigs. I remember the first thing I ever covered was like a Livonia Churchill, Livonia Stevenson soccer game, and
In Michigan fall weather.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I did a one of my first things for the Free Press got a big like headline, and it was about the it was about Canton's girls basketball team that was really good back then. And so that just kind of, once you get that kind of like your second story gets like this huge headline and on the front page, and I was a nobody, but
Yeah.
it like gave me that same kind of charge you get when you hit a jumper and you're going down the court, and the crowd's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I just kind of slowly but surely started grinding. I moved over to the Oakland Press pretty quickly, and it was just a question of the amount of stuff I could get. Uh, and at that point, I was kind of writing. The Free Press had me doing like restaurant reviews or previews, and then I got to the Oakland Press, and they had me doing, hey, this nail salon just opened up. Go do an article on it. And I remember I kept on calling the sports department at Oakland Press. Keith Dunlap was
Yeah.
before I knew Keith. I just, I was like, hey, Keith, I'm this new guy and I'm eager to work. And I remember the first couple months he was kind of busy, and I'm like, well, maybe they don't want me. And then eventually he called me. He was like, "Hey, you want to start working for us?" And then like it was 0 to 100. Like I went pretty quickly, and then by the I would say by the mid 2010s, late 2010s, I was the number one guy at the Oakland Press, and uh, it was a great run. I loved it. Brian Everson is now the new high school sports coordinator there, and does a great job. He was in town, and then he left, and he was in Missouri, and then we brought him back to town, and he's now running the show. It's a lot. It's a lot's changed, man. A lot's changed.
Yeah, yeah.
I got to see the last like vestige of like newspapers, like when like it meant before the internet. Like I remember in the late 2000s, just the way the newsroom would be at night. It was like something out of a movie where everybody's trying to put the paper to bed, and it's a
Coaches are
frantic
calling with
rush.
scores. You used to have to call
Right,
with
getting the
scores, right?
scores
Call it
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
I was on a payphone calling it in.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there was a time when we were putting out at the Oakland Press, we were putting out 15 game stories a night.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel you. Well, you did get a chance to cover a lot of outstanding high school basketball players over your career. And you talked about when you were younger going to watch C Webb, but as a reporter and when you were covering, what are some of the best players and maybe best teams you covered? Do you recall?
So I mean, when I look back on the best teams that I covered, you got to talk about, for me at least, at Oakland
Yeah, so I'm
County.
sorry. Yeah,
Right? No, no, I don't want to disrespect other people that were playing at the time or whatever. But I was an Oakland County reporter, so our focus was in Oakland County, and the 2017-18 Clarkston
I
group
knew it. Yeah.
was just so
Yeah.
historic, and
it could be from anywhere.
yeah.
Doesn't have to be
Well,
Oakland County to know that. Yeah,
and Dan Fife, rest in peace. He was such a transformative figure in so many people's lives, and such an icon. And I'm honored to call the family, good friends of mine. I grew up idolizing Dugan, and getting to
Yeah.
know him later on.
That Clarkson team, would you consider Foster one of the best players you've ever
Foster was
covered?
in terms of a high school basketball player, Foster was the best high school basketball player that I covered. He was
His IQ was off the
yeah, his
charts.
basketball IQ was like off the charts. His shooting percentage was off the charts. His leadership and composure was off the charts. Dan, I was honored to be able to cover the entire, not the entire, but to cover the last half of Dan's career, where, and I got to kind of narrate it as a storyteller in terms of where he went from breaking the curse, because he had the quarterfinal
Yeah.
curse that he
Yeah.
couldn't get past, and breaking the curse, and then going to the Final Four, and then eventually years later winning the championship. But I can remember one of my first. This was my. I don't. I think it was not. It was 2008. So this might have been the second tournament I was covering, first or second tournament I was covering, and I don't know if you remember this, but they were playing Saginaw in the quarters, Draymond Green, and they were up 6 with like a minute to go, and people are calling into the. It's over with. Dan's broke. The curse
wrote
is
the
the
person.
curse is broken.
And yeah.
And then like 5 minutes later, they're like, "No, the curse stands."
Ah,
They choked away the 6 point lead in the last minute. So I was like, that was right when I first got there. And then the next year is when they broke the curse and got to the Final Four with Matt Kamenicki, Brandon Pokley um, squad, which was another really exciting and fun. Tom Staten Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Another fun squad to cover. And then I can remember hearing the kind of slowly building buzz about the lawyers, and John Lawyer being he was the Pistons interim coach for a second, and he came to put his kids at Clarkson. They were Foster and Fletcher were in junior high, elementary school, and I remember hearing from people wait till Foster becomes a freshman. And he set the world on fire from
He
day
did.
one.
He really did.
Real deal.
His freshman year, he had a regional where he scored 65 points in the regional. Not in one game, over two games.
Yeah.
I think he had a 31-point game and a 35-point game as a freshman in a regional, and then they should have gone. I shouldn't say they should have. They easily could have gone to the Final Four that year, which would have been 15. That was Drew Myers' senior year.
Yep.
And Cassius beat him at the buzzer. And I was sitting next to Tim McCormick, and I said to Tim before the game, I might have said it again at halftime. I said the only way that Clarkson doesn't win this is if Cassius goes for 35. And that game-winning shot was his 35th point. And Tim turned to me and said, "You jinxed us, Scott. You jinxed us."
Those
So
are
those
two good
Clarkson
players.
teams, those players, Foster Lawyer, James Young, Ray McCallum Jr. The one that is a little bit quieter but seems to be making the biggest impact right this second is Isaiah Jackson, who just signed a big contract with the Pacers.
Pacers, yeah.
And he had his high school sports journey was kind of reflective of the way the
College landscape is right now.
Industry is right now.
He started at Northwest.
Started in the MIAC.
Yeah.
He started in the MIAC where I played. He started the first NBA MIAC player.
Yeah, he was at Lutheran Northwest. Then
Lutheran Northwest.
I know
then he was
school.
at Detroit Allen. Then he was at prep school. Then he came back and finished at Waterford Mott and had a great year and was about to have a showdown with Orchard Lake St. Mary's in the district finals, and then COVID shut everything down, and that was the end of his high school career. But I remember getting word from people from Roper actually, his freshman year, saying, "Hey, you need to see this new kid at Lutheran Northwest." And I remember saying, like, "Is he MIAC good or is he?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, this is they're like way beyond MIAC, Class D or Division IV basketball." Offensive skills, but in terms of his motor and his length,
I forgot that.
If you can't shoot, the only other way you're going to make it in the league is if you're a rim runner, baseline to baseline, defensive guy, rebounder, and he's just signed a contract where he's
kidding.
I think he's $7 million a year now, $8 million a year, as opposed to some of these other guys. We had, and you know this, we've had, especially in the last 15 years, we've had some phenom sure things assumed to be sure things that didn't turn into sure things. McCallum, Young,
James Young,
Josh Jackson are the first three that come to my mind.
Amani.
Amani. Okay, so four right there. I don't know how I forgot Amani. So those four were just looked as can't miss. Hopefully he'll
got a chance. Yeah,
he's doing. He hasn't given up and hasn't let the some of the pitfalls from his look like it was going to be a unfettered journey to the number one pick, and then obviously that didn't happen. But he's done a good job of not letting it deter him, and he's still grinding. Young is playing overseas. I don't know what Ray McCallum's doing.
I think he's overseas too.
Josh Jackson is not in the league anymore.
Yeah.
Josh Jackson was a number 3 pick.
Mm-hmm.
James Young was a number 14 pick.
Yeah.
So, these were guys that I thought.
So did NBA. NBA executives.
Jackson,
yeah.
I thought those guys were going to be career NBA players, and they didn't turn out that way. James had such a great opportunity in Boston.
Did he go to Kentucky?
So James went to Kentucky. The worst thing that happened to James, frankly, was his performance in the Final Four.
It's just to say the NCAA tournament. Yep.
where he looked outstanding, and it gave him the notion that he was ready to go to the league, and he needed another year. And he went 1 year, and because he had such a great tournament, and they lost in the finals, but in that final game, I think he had 22 points and was 4 of 6 from 3-point range.
Yeah.
Uh, and then he went to the league and he fizzled fast. I mean, he fizzled fast. Took Josh a couple years to fizzle, but you know, that's an example of you need to be able to, no matter how good you are, you need to be able to shoot. And Josh Jackson was never a great shooter from outside. Ray McCallum,
Ray
I
was
might
just a
have,
little undersized for the NBA in terms of what he could do.
and maybe going to U of D hurt him
Yeah.
because of the lack of competition. But again, Amani, I give credit to him. We've been lucky as Michiganders, and I think people from Metro Detroit and from Michigan, we take for granted how great the basketball landscape is. You leave the state and you go into other states, and they have a couple good kids here and there, but in terms of the depth and the year in year out talent that we get here, and we've always gotten, it's really, it's an outlier in a lot of ways, and because it's so commonplace to us,
Yeah, but
we don't necessarily.
I personally think we're starting to lose that because of the prep school and the
Yeah, well,
unlimited games. Like, we're losing a lot of our top talent that we had
and
in the early 2000s.
that's been a trend since Jackson, and Bates both
Yeah.
Yeah.
decided to go, and they didn't go to prep schools. They had prep
They
schools
created for them. Yeah.
which is a whole other level of. But I want to throw this out there for some of the younger people watching this. You don't see it now with the PSL. I mean, the PSL is to say it's a shadow of its former self is offensive to shadows, frankly. But at at its peak, you, and this let me this is for younger people. This is not an exaggeration. At its peak, you could go to 6 gyms on one night in the Detroit PSL and see first round draft picks and future NBA players. They were scattered around Detroit every year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. You were covering your alma mater, Roper, in 2010, when what turned out to be an unbelievable double overtime game with Carter Mooney.
Crazy. One of the best games I've ever seen. And
we were able to come out victorious in that regional final. A historic victory for our school because it was the first regional championship in boys basketball in our school's history, which ultimately led us on a magical run to the state championship. Yep. That remains one of the greatest games I've been involved in as a coach. What are some of the most memorable games you've covered?
Well, let's talk about that game.
Okay.
I try to be as that was a game that definitely goes down as one of the greatest games I've ever seen in person. It had a lot of emotional connection to me because I was covering my alma mater at my alma mater, but I was also buddies with the McAndrews and Susie and your sister Susie, and so it wasn't like I was I was happy for you guys. Like I wasn't.
Yeah.
I call balls and strikes, and I was with a lot of my former teammates after that game, and we went out, and we deserved to lose that game. Or I shouldn't say we. Roper deserved to lose. I was a reporter. Roper deserved to lose that game, and unfortunately, it fit a pattern with some of the biggest games in our school's history, where where the team goes into let's not lose mode, as opposed
from
to
our perspective,
let's put this thing to bed mode.
Yeah, from our perspective,
and Roper led that whole game.
A double-digit lead in the second half, for the majority of the second half. And I can remember one time out, Jim and I specifically talking, and I'm like, we need to go to a trap. We need to speed them up. They're looking to take the clock off and just try and not win.
which I hate, by the way.
yeah.
And it's something that
And I'll
I
never
would.
forget this. He looked at me at one point. I'm like, "We're good. 1-3-1, yes or no?" And he's like, "Yeah, 1-3." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Are you asking me or are you telling me?" I said, "I'm telling you. We're going 1-3-1."
And I have Ernie has been more than a coach to me in my life, and has been so influential. I don't want to say butted heads because I was never a co-coach with him, but as a player and as somebody that covered him, did not. I was never a fan of the stall, and Ernie was a fan of the Dean Smith four
4
corners,
corners. Yeah.
leave the clock. Even as a player, I hated the posturing that was. It was very like.
And one of the interesting things to me in that game, as that game was developing and they started to slow down, I distinctly remember having this conversation with my staff. They weren't just going 4 corners; they were having Ryan Zinzer pass it and run through to the corner and fill. And I thought once he passed that ball,
Once you took it out of Ryan's hands,
we could jump that next guy as hard as possible.
Which was another problem. Not, I shouldn't say a problem. That was statistically, that's the greatest team in Roper history. They were ranked number 1 in the state the whole year. I believe they were undefeated, or did they have one loss?
They had one loss.
One loss coming into your game. But I will say that that team was kind of a 2-man show, 1-man show. Ryan and Cole, the big guy. Ryan was one of the greatest players to ever play at my alma mater. One of the best small school players to play in Metro Detroit in the last 25, 30 years. You guys had a excellent counter to him, and Drew and your nephew, who also gets put in that same category. And that the depth on that team was an Achilles heel that they were able to hide for a whole season. And as you said, if you get the ball out of Ryan's hands, there wasn't really anybody on that team that had the level of skill to do anything close that Ryan did, as opposed to the teams that I played on in the 90s, where you had a plethora of guys, and this is just different eras, but a plethora of guys that were going to go on and play college basketball on the team that you're talking, that 2010, nobody went on to play college basketball. I mean, Drew did, but and Tommy,
Tommy went on to coach, never played in college, went on to coach at college. Yeah. In scouting them too, one of the things was like, this kid's got the ball in his hand 95% of the time, right? You can get it out of his hands. There's guys, not that they weren't capable, they just weren't confident.
But
no,
also,
I was never. I think I started. I wasn't a everyday starter, but I would have started on. I would have started on that team.
Yeah.
So it was a great team record wise. It kind of caught up with them in that last game, but they did. If you remember, they did have a shot to win it at the end of regulation.
End of regulation.
And Ryan took kind of a step back jumper from the foul line. I don't know if it was the best shot. It hit the back rim. So I mean, that's all you can really ask for, I guess. Ball. The place was packed, and Roper had the home court. The place was packed.
It was a great high school environment. Like I said, it'll be one of the most memorable games I ever coach in.
And you guys deserved to win the game. There was nothing about that game where I came away saying Roper got cheated or Roper. That was 2 heavyweight champions slugging it out in the center of the ring. So that goes down as one of the best games I was able to cover. I got to cover at the very start of my career. I got to cover some of the Pontiac Central, Pontiac Northern games, which were, that was just an iconic rivalry and just a storied lineage of players to have played in those games. I saw some great Country Day games over the years with some of Kurt's teams at the end, with Ray, with Edmund Sumner, who also made it into the NBA. Southfield Christian, another Class D program, who had a Class D dynasty.
Yep.
They played a game that they lost in the Final Four in 18 or 19, and that was a double overtime classic where North Central won at the buzzer.
Yeah, kid caught an air ball rebound and put it back
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
So the game that Amani Bates's freshman year state championship game, which was a buzzer beater, was
Against
one of the
Jesuit.
which was one of the greatest games that I was able to cover. And then if maybe if I had to pick one game, and this might be kind of a little bit out of the box here, but I'm gonna go to girls basketball for a second. The uh the Catholic League Championship in 16, maybe, Marion versus Mercy, and Marion or Mercy. I'm trying to remember. Mercy stole the ball, and on a Mercy stole the ball in the last second on a out of bounds play and scored a layup at the buzzer
At Callahan.
at Callahan Hall.
Those
And
were
then they
some
met, and then
rivalries.
they met again in the Final Four, and Marion won.
Two great
Mercy,
coaches there, two Hall of
yeah,
Fame coaches there, and
yeah,
Gary and Mary.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
can we talk about the game where you guys knocked me out of the tournament?
Sure.
That 92 districts. I didn't play in that game. I was on the bench, but
was
I
coaching.
didn't get in that game. But I remember it pretty well. I think we were favored, and it was like the first game in like a slate. I remember it was like an earlier
The
game,
early of the two games, yeah.
and our best player was a guy named Hassan Jihad, who was a 30-point a night guy. And what I remember about that game was that they hit him with at least 3 offensive. He fouled out, and at least 3 of those 5 fouls were offensive.
Mooney guys take charges, man. I don't know what to tell you. That's how you stay in the game.
You guys went on to win that game, and then
that was 92. Mike, you were playing. I was coaching.
Yeah. And then in 93, you guys ended up winning, I think, because
94 we won. 93 was that crazy.
We lost in
that was another
4
one of the
overtimes.
best games. That was one of the best games I watched. As a kid, I wasn't covering it or playing in it, but I was in the gym. 4
we
overtime
lost the
game
4
against
overtimes to Bethesda and Jock Smiley.
Let me switch a little bit to your involvement at state champs and how that came about and developed into one of the best high school sports show in the state.
They were around before I came back to town. When I was living in Chicago, I was in Chicago for the first half of the 2000s. So I think that state champs was around in like 4, 5, 6, and then it went away.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they brought it back in 10 is when they brought me on board. Lou Batante runs a great business there, which is it's all for the players and the parents and the community. I don't think there's anything like it in terms of the kind of coverage, and they really spread out that coverage, where it's not just the big ticket sports like basketball and football. If you're a swimmer, if you're a lacrosse player, if you're a hockey player, if you're a volleyball player,
guys do a great job. Kids love it.
They really make sure that everybody gets the love. We have, I've been lucky enough to be an analyst and a contributor, whether it be a blogger, a reporter, on air, play by play. No, I never did play by play. On air color. I did play-by-play for Oakland Crest a couple a couple times when we were doing our coverage, but mostly color with the state champs and in studio stuff and I actually for a while we were trying to do some expansion, and I was working at State Champs Indiana for a couple of years where I was going back and forth between Indiana and Michigan. Uh, so yeah, it's a great brand. I love it. Lauren Plant is the face of it, and he's superb. Uh, Brings with it so much passion and energy, and um, he's a great troubadour, trumpeteer. I don't know what term I'm trying to. Someone who
I
really
know what you mean.
Trumpeteer.
Trumpeter.
who really can uh, he does such a great job of expressing the love of the games and the love of the of the coverage that we all have, and it kind of is all channeled through him because he's the voice and the face of it. But he just gets everybody jacked up. I'm sitting next to him, and he'll start a segment, and I'll be like, "All right, Lauren just injected me with some fuel and some energy to get moving because he's always so positive and
We can feel it.
and I love doing it. I have, as you mentioned, at the top of the show, I have this other side of my reporting, which is all really dark. I mean, frankly, it's reporting on criminals and criminal behavior and really bad guys. Uh, so there's like a negative energy that just is innate, kind of baked into it. So to be able to counter it over the years with like the the polar opposite, which is just everything is positive. I mean, I can't think of many times where things uh, broke negative through my coverage. I mean, there've been a couple of little tiffs here and there, but for the most
Yeah.
part, it's all positive. I uh, I love St. Champs, and I can't thank them enough for giving me the opportunity to become um, a featured player in the State Champs universe, and um,
Love those segments with you and my guy TJ Kelly.
I remember there was some times a couple years ago where they'd put TJ and I in a on a pod, and they'd be like, "All right, guys, you need to keep this to 40 minutes or 45 minutes." And TJ would be at like
You two? No way.
the 2 hour mark
Right.
inevitably.
Yeah.
But those were the best, man. When you get to really drill down and um, talk about not just people that you cover, but people that like yourselves. Like I'm not just talking about people uh, because I cover them or because they're my buddies. I'm talking about them because they've done something that deserves to be praised.
Yep.
And there's one more thing.
Go ahead.
I've gotten the honor to build relationships with some of the guys and gals on Mount Rushmore. And to be able to call John Harrington from Harrison a friend, Al Fracassa from Brother Rice a friend, Mary Ciccone from Marion a friend, to be able to say these are people that I could call up and ask a question or ask for advice or counsel. That's George Porritt, Tom Mack, uh, so many goats, and to be able to have those relationships that go beyond just an interview really mean the world to me and the players and the players' families.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the things for me, Scott, and we talked to Mick McCabe a few weeks ago about this, just, times are different. You spoke on that earlier about the landscape of prep sports coverage and reporting and journalism. But the amount of people that could open up the paper and have that physical keepsake of their kids, names in the paper, big victory, the whole bit. There's just thousands of kids and athletes over your 18 years at the Oakland Press that I know have, you've created a lifelong memory for.
And just as I mean, I remember it. I can feel it. Like when you're the kind of coverage that we were able to do with the Oakland Press was you were going to get that coverage anywhere in Michigan. I mean, we were covering you, and when I was there, they were covering me like we were the pros. I mean, you were getting
Mhm.
big articles with big pictures and analysis and stats. As a 16-year-old kid, that makes you feel like you own the world to be able to. And back when we were playing, there was no internet, so I remember just being up at 6 in the morning, running to the curb to get the newspaper,
Yep.
and talking to my teammates the night before. What's the headline going to be? Like, what do you think they're going to say about this part of the game or that part of the game? That was the best part, and then being able to pay it back years later, where I got to be the one that was covering.
Yep. As Mike said in the open, you're one of the leading experts in the country on organized crime. I mean, what drew you? Here we are talking about all this sports coverage, and what drew you to wanting to find out more about organized crime here in the United States? How was that segue, by the way? How did that go? Yeah, great. Okay.
It was something that I didn't anticipate. It wasn't anything that was a lifelong interest of mine growing up. Uh, all this stuff that we're talking about was 10 times more important to me, 100 times more important to me than anything that I'm writing about now in my crime reporting. I grew up surrounded by some stuff that I was kind of unaware of, because they were just family. But the Jewish mob in Detroit back during Prohibition was called the Purple Gang, and it's a term that's really kind of transcended Prohibition Detroit, and was referenced in Elvis Presley songs and James Bond novels. It became a real, like, iconoclast in terms of uh, mob activity, both in the media coverage of it and within the underworld itself. And the leaders and founders of the Purple Gang were the Bernstein brothers, four brothers: Abe, Joe, Ray, and Izzy. And they were part of my family that came over from Ukraine. And the Bernsteins all came from the Ukraine. And I grew up hearing stories about the Purple Gang. My uncle was killed by the Detroit mob in 1971. So I grew up hearing stories about that. And then my grandfather, while I wouldn't categorize him as a mobster, I would say he was mafia adjacent. But even then, it didn't really interest me that much beyond a conversation here or there. And again, I know this was a long answer to your question. I can ramble on. But I got to a law school, and I thought that I wanted to be a lawyer like my father. And I didn't love law school, but I loved the internship that I did while I was in law. When I was in law school, I did it's called an externship, where you're working during school. I was in Chicago at law school at the University of Illinois Chicago, um, and I was lucky enough to get an externship at the Illinois Attorney General's office. So starting in 2000 through 2004, I was working at the Illinois AG's office, and in my second year there, they put me in the organized crime division, and I was just like a coffee boy learning the ropes. But I got to go out with FBI agents and
Wow.
county sheriffs and prosecutors and go investigate the Chicago mob. I felt like the movie Casino was like coming to life before my very eyes. There was a mob murder there in '01, and I remember driving with the detectives to go knock on doors to see who might have seen the murderer. And it really that really sparked my interest. And when you took the fact that I had soured on the idea of practicing law, I I got all A's in all of my writing courses throughout life. I had always been a naturally talented writer, but it wasn't anything I thought about making a living out of. And then I had a professor in law school who was integral in my finding my future and finding my career, who took me aside one day and said, "You're doing great at your externship. We're getting the most amazing reports about you and how you're doing there. And I know because I'm your professor that you're an amazing writer. And I can hear you talking before class and after class about how you have no desire to practice law. So do you mind me giving you a suggestion? And I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, well, I suggest that you consider writing about the law as opposed to practicing it. And you could even write about the stuff that you're doing at the AG's office. And it was like really that I can remember where I was in his lecture hall, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I went home and I was in the shower getting ready for bed, and I remember thinking to myself, I didn't even know that was possible. That didn't even seem like that was even in the cards. But he says that he thinks I can do it, and he thinks that's a path that I could go down and be successful in. And he helped me get a book deal, and I got a book deal when I was 28 years old. And it was just kind of from that point forward, I built a career for myself, kind of like I did with the sports reporting. You start and you put your head down and you grind and you pay your dues, and hopefully the people that you're reporting on, there is some similarity, as crazy as it sounds. Hopefully the people that you're reporting on become, you develop a trust with them, and they trusted us to bring that story to the public. I've just been able to expand it around the country. I don't know how I've been able to do it, but in almost 20 years, I report on day to day activity in Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, New England, and in the last couple of years, I've been up in Canada.
So,
And then from a business perspective, I've been lucky that I've been able to fill gaps all around the continent.
You've got a project that you've been working on coming up this week. Tell us about it. Tell our listeners about what you have going on this week for those that are interested in the organized crime stories that you've been reporting on.
So yeah, I know this isn't necessarily the target audience, but people that might know me and just be interested in coming out and supporting me and hearing or seeing another part of what I do. So um, I'm starting next week or this week, Wednesday, the July 23rd, over at Macomb Community College. I'm going to be kicking off a slate of live events that I'm going to be doing both locally and nationally. We're going to be taking live events, panel discussions, different subjects to a auditorium near you. The first one is a case that is embedded in the fabric of Americana and embedded in the fabric of Metro Detroit. It's the 50th anniversary this month of the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. I would say without question, it's the most speculated upon and most notorious unsolved murder mystery in American history. People have been talking about it for 50 years, and nobody's really been able to bring any concrete answers to the table in 50 years. So I'm pleased to announce that myself and my team are going to be doing an event called Hoffa Mystery Solved, and it's a 2-hour multimedia immersive 2-hour experience where you're going to be not just me with a microphone. It's going to be a panel. It's going to be never before seen video, never before seen photos directly from the FBI archives. It's myself, a former Detroit mobster named Novi Toko, who was a mob soldier in the Toko Zerilli crime family, and retired federal prosecutor Richard Convertino, who was one of the top mob busters for the feds in the 90s and 2000s. But we're going to take something that's pretty old and we're going to give it a fresh spin, and we're going to give people answers that they've been looking for. I'm confident in saying that at the end of the evening, which will conclude with a question and answer period, but at the end of the evening, we're going to tell people the name of the person who killed Jimmy Hoffa. We're going to tell you where the body, where we're going to tell people where the body went, and I'm going to tell people that I'm not just saying this. It's not just Scott and these two other people saying this. This is what the FBI believes. Stop with all the digging and running around, because there's been a lot of running around looking for something
It
that
really
might
has.
not
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
That's a tease. If you want to check it out, ogmediaevents.com.
Got it. ogmediaevents.com for our listeners. Scott, we wish you continued success with your future projects. I want to thank you for coming on, taking the time out to come on and take us down memory lane, talk some old school hoops in Metro Detroit. Always a favorite topic for Jim and I. But wishing you continued success in all your endeavors.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Scott.
man. Again, what you guys are doing is great. And getting a hold of something you guys love and putting it out there, you can tell it's done with a lot of love and a lot of well, yeah, but you don't, like, people tell me, you don't got to fake it. Like, when it's real, when it's authentic, it comes through, and
Yeah.
it comes through
Thanks,
with you guys.
man.
But before you, I mean, you guys didn't call me and tell me you're doing a podcast. I just saw it, and then
Yeah.
I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. Two guys that know the game so well and have so many connections around the area. It's awesome, man. It's awesome.
Appreciate
And
it.
Appreciate you.
Say hi to your sister for me. I
We
should
will.
have mentioned her. She's on Mount Rushmore. She's one of the goats.
Easy.
And you guys aren't
I
that
know.
far behind.
Thank you.
So, Scott,
All right,
thanks
guys.
again, man. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on and wishing you much continued success.
Thanks, guys.
Wow, what an interesting episode that was. Jim took us down memory lane. A lot of basketball in Metro Detroit. A lot of Carter Mooney basketball for you and I, and then also the stuff he's doing on the true crime reporting. Very interesting stuff.
Really, really interesting stuff to be coming from Mooney and Roper basketball to being on the national headlines with some of the stuff he's doing is really fascinating.
Yeah, very good guy. Good to the McAndrews family. Great to a lot of student athletes and coaches in Metro Detroit. So we were fortunate to have Scott Burnstein join us on episode 10. Episode 10 is in the books for you and I. I know we're both looking forward to heading up next weekend up north for a little vacay time with the family. And then when we get back, we will hopefully have another guest with another dynamic episode 11 if we can make it that far.
Sounds good. See you then.
All right, take care. Thanks for joining us on episode 10 of Two Shots in the Ball. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
We want to clean in the paint. We're going to call hand checking and body checking, and sportsmanship is an absolute must, okay?